Any thoughts on why the name Jesus is only mentioned in the New Testament? We see clear evidence of the person who would be Jesus in the Old Testament, quote, God with us, and Emmanuel in Isaiah, just not Jesus.
Well, that's an interesting question, one I've never been asked before. And it seems like this falls maybe into the category of God revealing things when they need to be revealed. Okay, and God doesn't jump the gun and kind of give the whole layout of everything. We have what's called progressive revelation. So we have the first reference to Jesus actually in Genesis 3, when a son of Eve, pardon me, will fight the snake and strike a fatal blow on the snake, but he will suffer too. So no names or anything, and actually it's very vague as far as it goes. And then we see more characterizations. He shall be called, and these things in Isaiah that you just mentioned, and Emmanuel and Eternal Father, Prince of Peace, whatever these different things that it mentions there, and they're meant to be characterizations. The actual given name is not so important at any given time. It isn't a prophecy that he will be named Jesus, because that doesn't happen accidentally. That name is given, just like John's name is given. It's a given name. In other words, God decided the name, and you shall call his name Jesus because he shall save his people from their sins. And John the Baptist's name was given there in the vision to Zechariah there in Luke chapter 1. So there are sometimes then God assigns the name, and he doesn't do that until it's necessary. That is, when the child's about to be born and then named, then God gives the name if he has one in mind. So it's not at all unusual. We do have characterizations, but the name isn't given until it's needed to be used, just prior to the birth in both cases of John and Jesus, John the Baptist. So it doesn't strike me as unusual. The question is more or less a curiosity, I guess. There's nothing theologically weighty about the issue, but it just follows the pattern of God revealing what's necessary at the time and not going into a lot more detail if it's not necessary. There's plenty of stuff, 66 books, to already be concerned with. So I think that that's probably the reason.
I can imagine, too, if they had announced... If a prophet had announced the name ahead of time, that could actually cause some problems, because then you could have people claiming that name or naming their children that name in hopes that they would be the one. And then people would say now, oh, they just named him Jesus because they wanted to fulfill that prophecy. Mm-hmm. So I think there are a lot of downsides, and I agree with you that it's not really the pattern of what God usually does.
Right.
So
now, some people may not know that the name that Jesus was given, Yeshua, is the same name as Joshua, who was one of the believing spies and leaders of and kind of a disciple of Moses. And he's a fighter. He's a warrior. When I say believing spies, the 12 spies that went into the land of the book of Numbers, 10 gave a bad report. And there were 2, which included Joshua, who said, no, I know the land is filled with giants, but it's promised to us by God, let's fight against the overwhelming foe, and we will succeed because God is with us. Well, that isn't the idea that prevailed, but Joshua prevailed into the next generation, was able not only to enter the promised land, but lead the Jews after Moses died. So we have in Joshua a picture then of the mighty warrior who will lead his people and conquer and obtain the promised land. And so this is why, and actually I think the word Joshua, it means the Lord saves, or something like that, if you look at the etymology of it. So it's an appropriate name for Jesus, and it's meant to communicate to the people at the time more detail about the particular role of that person being born of Mary. He shall save his people from their sins.